Blind Justice Entertainment. I decided I would go live now. Just got back home not long ago, and I thought that it would be interesting to try to go live during this time frame and kind of see how things go in this avenue. Let me get my...
Welcome to the chat. Remember, chat options button.
All right, so now I've got that set up. So today we're going to talk about substance use and addiction from a societal perspective, a personal perspective, and maybe some utilities that you can put in your tool belt that might help you when it comes to substance use, maintaining sobriety from substances, right? So this is a very broad and vast topic. I took an entire class on this, 2 of them, actually 3 of them at this point, 1 in undergrad and 2 in my current grad school program when it comes to addictions and substance use. So I feel like I know enough to speak on the subject from my perspective, right? So substance use, let's start from the beginning. Like, how do substance uses start? Where does the idea of substance use come from? And in a modern society, is there any sort of exacerbating, compounding situations that can increase the likelihood of substance use?
YouTube
Also,
now. Voodoo VR. English. Creator tools. Chat options. Welcome to the chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community
welcome
guidelines. Chat
to
options
live chat
button.
to all the viewers. Just come on in and leave comments, and we can have an open discussion as we go. As again, allow me to state I am blind, so what will be happening is I will be taking breaks from talking and checking the comments and responding to your comments as I continue on for today's topic at hand. Well, one problem that we have in the substance use world is the access to medications that are predominantly pushed by the medical industry, right? For example, painkillers, such as opioids. You know, a good example of that would be Vicodin, Roxycontin, and things of that, and Percocet, things of that nature, which do serve a medical purpose, right? But they also are incredibly addictive substances, and so they have to be given out properly. And the problem is, in the early 2000s, these substances...
YouTube now. Red circle. Ben Shapiro. Creator to chat options. Welcome to the chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our chat options button. YouTube now. YouTube. Red circle. Watch leave. Welcome to the chat. Remember to chat options button. Speech off.
All right, I've muted my speech for right now. My screen reader. The problem is these substances were not heavily regulated and were being pushed from an ethical perspective in the early 2000s, right? For example, the medical machine wanted to sell as many of these pills as they possibly could. So they started using the ethical argument of saying that how can we properly judge someone who's in pain? Isn't it unethical to allow someone to be in pain? So shouldn't we always be pushing these medications to anyone who asks for them? Well, the result of that is a large percentage of people who became substance users for recreational purposes or for self-treatment instead of medical treatment. And the reason why that's a problem is because legally it's a problem, right? I'm not saying morally it's a problem. If an adult wants to use a substance, I think they should have access to it if that's what they want to do. There should be no legal ramifications for a disorder like that. If someone has a substance use disorder, then I don't believe that we should be punishing them for pursuing their substance use. As long as it's bringing no harm to anyone else, isn't that supposed to be the concept of the land of the free, right? But regardless, these medical companies, these pill pushing companies, really wanted to maximize sales in the early 2000s, and they did so by trying to go under the ethical lens of, if someone says they're in pain, treat their pain. And the underlining notion of it was that it maximized profits, it destroyed local communities, because they were giving out these medications, and when you couldn't get them legally anymore, people would go to whatever means needed and to continue their substance use, and then it became a legal problem, which when it comes to the legality of substance uses, when it comes to addiction, it's really a law against, it's a morality law, right? That's all substance use is. It's a morality law. And what I mean by that is, if a person is just getting in trouble for using a substance to try to self-medicate, then who are they hurting? There is no secondary party, right? So that's a law literally designed around morality, not around helping victims, which it could be argued that the person using the substance is a victim, and they're a victim of circumstance and happenstance. But punishing them for utilizing a tool that they have found to be beneficial may not be the best way to help them in the scenario. It's not. Actually, the proof is in the pudding. It's absolutely not the best way. Someone has to want to receive treatment in order to maximize the success rate of treatment. That's just the truth when we're looking at substance use and addiction. People who are forced by court systems or by the law in some way or another to receive treatment as a part of their release program from, or they're halfway home, or as a part of their settlement to stay outside of court, or whatever, you know what I mean? All of these other, if treatment is forced upon someone, the chances of treatment working is incredibly low. It is. It just is. And everyone in the field knows that, but we still act as though it's not incredibly low. But if we're looking at the numbers as a whole, forcing someone into treatment is not the proper motivation to maximize recovery. It's just not. We can teach them tools. We can teach them treatment methods. We can modality methods of processes. But the problem is, and this is a huge problem, is whenever these individuals are no longer in the care facility, because usually it's a medium-term length care facility that individuals go to, once they leave, their tolerance level for the substance in which they are taking for self-medication and treatment, their tolerance goes down dramatically, which results in a lot of accidental overdoses, which is incredibly common and significantly common after forced treatment. So what it usually ends up happening, it happens a lot, is if someone is put into the system into having forced treatment due to a morality law, because it's the morality of the societal norms to dictate whether or not what they're doing is wrong to themselves, then what happens is they leave their medium term, maybe short term, maybe long term. They may be in a outpatient program where they have to go to their parole officer once a week for a drug test. So that keeps them from using the substance as a motivation factor, right? But as soon as they're done with the program and they turn in their paperwork to their parole officer to say, I'm done with this program, a large percent of them will be heavily influenced either by environmental or a drive factor, or the fact that their underlining challenge that they have yet to address has not been resolved. So they want to try to resolve it themselves once more. And this usually leads to substance use relapse. What happens at this time with substance use relapse is once the individual starts consuming the substance again, the most dangerous part is the first time that they use after not using their substance for weeks or months, right? Because that first dose that they're going to take is going to be based off of the equivalency dose that they would take before receiving treatment a lot of the times. And this will result in an accidental overdose for their tolerance has gone down, but their quantity of their substance has not to calibrate for their lower tolerance. And it's at this stage we see a lot of deaths when it comes to substance use. So we have a lot of deaths that are related specifically to forced treatments programs that are designated by law for individuals who are not yet ready to receive them. That's not where they're at the moment. And so I believe that the system within itself is causing deaths when it comes to substance uses. I mean, I literally just laid it out exactly how it goes through and comes back to death by people who use substances. Morality laws should never lead to a higher rate of death. The exception to this rule is, well, I can't think of any, but that is, so the way that forced treatment is utilized in America, North America, is flawed. The individual, the person, has to have, now let's say that an individual gets arrested and they go through this stuff. Sometimes this can be used as rock bottom, right? They've hit a point to where they've realized that their life is dysregulated to a degree in which they can now recognize that it's dysregulated. And this can be utilized as a point of tension in order to help the individual recognize the dysregulation in their life. There's like 5 main sectors of a person's life where, you know, you can, if any of these sectors are disrupted, then it's safe to say that substance use is no longer recreational, but is now, you know, it's now causing actual societal problems within the personal life of the individual. And I'm going to go over the 5 sectors now. So you have family. That's immediate family. That includes your spouse, your / partner, or children. 2, grooming habits. Have you quit showering? Have you quit bathing? Have you quit cleaning yourself? Does that matter less to you now? Or have you gone 3 months without showering because you're worried about where you're going to get your next fix, and that's the only thing you care about? 3rd one is monetary needs. You know, are your bills still being able to be paid? Are you still able to regulate your household needs, chores, cleanliness of the house? The first one, by the way, is, are you able to regulate your relationship successfully with your children, with your spouse, partner? Anyways, the 4th one, I just had to go back to the first one to kind of explain more on that one. The 4th one is job. Have you lost your job? Have you been written up for absences? Maybe you've dozed off on work due to substance use, or are you about to lose your job? Or have you lost it and you really don't care as long as you can still find ways of getting money to continue the pursuit of your addiction, right? And the fifth one is community connection. Have you become withdrawn from your community, from your friends, your circle, things of that nature? If these avenues become disrupted, then it's a pretty clear-cut sign that your substance use has resulted in a non-maintenance way. Like, you're not just using it for recreational purposes at that point. It's definitely gone to the point of becoming a problem to where it's dysregulating one of your primary life functions, right? And so that's a pretty good indicator of where a person may fall. And they could be dysregulated in one of those 5 categories. They could be dysregulated in all of them, or any sort of combination in between, right? But no matter how many states are dysregulated, if the individual is not yet ready, then it's probably not going to be a successful treatment modality, or the treatment modality success rate goes down dramatically if the individual is not mentally prepared for sobriety. And I'm going to take a second to see if we have any comments, and then I'll continue.
Speech on. Creator tools. Chat options. Marge Maple. Yes. Button.
Hello, Marge Mabel. How are you doing today?
Welcome to live chat. Marge Maple. Yes. Button.
All right.
Speech off.
I appreciate you being here, Marge Mabel. Feel free to leave comments. I don't think I've heard your name before, so I'm a blind guy. So I can't see comments when they come in, so I take breaks periodically to have my screen reader read them. Feel free to leave a comment whenever you want. Just please don't be upset if I don't read it immediately. I'll be more self-conscious about, or self-aware, and I will make sure to take more breaks more frequently to make sure that I react to the comments, and it can be a dialogue, a communication, instead of just a one-way conversation. Okay? So let's get back to the topic at hand. Back on the process of substance use. So forced treatment is primarily not the way to go, as we've covered up till now. Now the question is what can be done to help encourage individuals to seek treatment willingly, right? Forcing someone to go down that avenue, not a successful rate of healing. So now the question then becomes, how do we encourage people to travel down that avenue? Well, there is a few experiments that were taken into effect that have been utilized initially with rats and have actually shown great success within humans as a treatment option as well. And so I'm going to start by talking about how it was implemented with rats. So rats were given water supplies with drugs in them, like heroin or cocaine, right? And these rats, oh, my cat's decided that she wants to say hey. Let me say hey, Kitty. Oh, now she's camera shy. So these rats would sit there and drink this water laced with substances until they died. The only thing they cared about was the consumption of the substance. But an interesting fact is, whenever given a choice, or even when given a choice between water that didn't have the substance and water with the substance in it, they would immediately go to the water with the substance, and they would just sit there and they would drink it and enjoy it and all that other good stuff. And that's all they cared about. But whenever connected with other rats, whenever given the option to hang out and be with other rats, and that option was presented, almost every time they would choose community, and they would go hang out with the other rats and do what they do and drink the clean water, and they would never touch the water with substances again after that point. And I wish I could remember the name of that experiment, but off the top of my head, I can't. And I'm live right now, so I can't look it up. But what that showed us was that connection matters. Connection can be a pathway out of substance use, right? And so this idea was adopted. I can't remember, it wasn't in America, it was in another country where they created like a community based environment where people who had substance use, who were challenged by substance addiction, could go to these communities and they would choose to live there, where they would make connections with other people and within the community and within the household, and everyone was given responsibilities and chores. And the success rate of this treatment style was remarkable. In undergrad, I remember watching the documentary on this being done in a classroom setting. And so having that community connection is absolutely vital. Their success rate, just by building a healthy community and getting people involved in a community where stigma was not a thing, absolutely impacted their success rate of maintaining sobriety. Now I'm going to take a second and read chat. So if you want to leave a comment, do so now. And then we'll get back to continuing this conversation.
Speech on. Casket King 00. Yo-yo. Button.
Hello, Casket King.
Chat options. Casket King. Marge Maple. Yes. Button. Casket. Chat options. Button.
I hope you're having a great
Speech off.
day, Mr. King. So I want to get back to talking about, this treatment modality of getting people involved and invested in a community where they have responsibilities and they don't have to feel ashamed. They don't have to feel guilt based off of their prior substance use, where they can just be a part of a community that's accepting of them, was so successful. I think it had way high, I can't remember exactly what the percentage was, but it was significantly higher success rate than forced treatment methods, right? So that working model worked with rats and it also works with humans, which shows the importance of human connection with people who have substance use challenges. I would state that if you have someone in your life who has a substance use challenge, then maybe the best thing you can do with them is to hang out with them and be like, hey, you want to go to the mall? You want to go see a movie? You want to go get some dinner? Hey, I'm going to do some volunteer work here. Come on down. Because the stronger their connection is with other people and the community, the less likely they are to continue using the substance. There is a direct correlation there. The worst thing that you can do with someone who has a substance use challenge is to isolate them, because all that does is exacerbate their substance use. And that lowers the likelihood of successful treatment modalities for individuals who face substance use challenges. So I would strongly recommend trying to get these individuals more involved with the community, right? Because that's going to open the door to where they are wanting to seek treatment for their substance use. At that point, it's no longer a forced treatment session. It is a willing treatment session, or at least a session where you have a person who is curious about what it would look like for them to live without substances. And that right there within itself is a huge step in the right direction. That's opening up the dialogue for future conversations in a manner that is valuable to the individual. Now it has meaning to them. Now it's no longer, I just have to do this. Now it's like, well, I'm curious about this. And that is really impactful to the individual. So community, vitally important for substance use, for getting people to be willing to receive treatment, and where we're no longer talking about a forced treatment modality based off of moral laws. So now we have gone through, up to this point, we've gone through Like, how do you know if a addiction is no longer manageable? Those 5 stages of life, we talked about that. And whenever those become dysregulated, if you have one dysregulated, maybe that's a coincidence. But if you have two or more, then there's a pattern that starts to be formed, right? We talked about forced treatment methods and why they don't work and why they're built on laws of morality. And they actually encourage the death of these individuals by lowering tolerance whenever they're not ready to quit, and they oftentimes reuse the same amount of drugs, which results in accidental overdoses and oftentimes results in the death of the individual. We've talked about how to encourage individuals in a manner to want to seek treatment, and that is through community connections to where they don't feel stigma and there's no cycling going on. What do I mean by that? I mean, individuals may be trying to self medicate by using a substance because they have an underlying disorder that needs treatment, and they're just doing the best they can, and finding and using this substance is the best they can do. Maybe they just don't know about other ways of managing their whatever it is, right? And so they use this substance to manage an underlying problem, and then society tells them that that using this is a problem, and therefore they're considered lesser, quote unquote. I'm not saying they're considered lesser, but society oftentimes projects that ideology, not me, to where if you have a substance use problem, you're lesser. So then they start to feel bad about using their substance, and they don't want to feel bad, so they use more to try to combat their initial reasoning for using and their feeling about using. So they start to use more in order to try to get rid of both of those things. And so it's a rapid cycle. You start cycling through, the more you use, the worse you feel about using, because society tells you you should feel bad about trying to treat yourself. And so it becomes a cycle, endless spiral. But who knew, just by removing the stigma and by connecting people to communities where people genuinely care about people, who knew that would stop the cycle? It just makes logical sense. If you remove half of the cycle, then it can't cycle. Then the cycle can't occur. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to go through the comments again. So feel free to leave your comment now. And then we will proceed forward with what does treatment look like once a person becomes curious or is willing to receive treatment for substance use challenge, in like all the different ways that can look. And so that will be the next subject that we cover after we get through the comments. So leave yours now.
Speech on. Creator tools. Chat options. Casket King 00. Yo-yo. Button.
All right. All right. I see that Casket King is still last comment, so we'll proceed forward. And also thank you all for being here today. And I'm going to be doing this every day for at least an hour a day. I'm going to be coming on here and talking about a subject that I'm passionate about and hopefully enjoying a conversation. So, once an individual becomes curious or is willing / wanting to pursue treatment for substance use, what happens next? Well, really, that depends on the substance at hand. For example, if a person is using a substance where it may be dangerous for them to go cold turkey or to quit all at once, then maybe medical observation is required during the initial withdrawal phases. A good example of that is going through detox from alcohol. If you have been drinking
YouTube.
alcohol
Now. YouTube. Red circle. Watch
every
leave.
day
Speech
of
off.
your life for 5-10 years, then you are definitely at risk of experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms to the point that it is possible to cause death without medical intervention. And even with medical intervention, there is still a small chance of death, right? You have to be willing to acknowledge this and be honest with people who are wanting to seek treatment. To maximize life stability and safety, in cases where people are using substances that can cause withdrawal to the level that is possible of ending life, then medical intervention is taken into account, where a person may go into a medical facility for a set period of time to get through the initial stages of their substance use. Like I said, it's just to maximize safety. Now, for individuals who do not have substance use challenges with a substance that results in high likelihood or moderate likelihood of death based off of withdrawal, there's still treatment modalities for them. They can still enter short-term treatment facilities that are, therapist led, psychologist led, psychiatrist led, etc., where maybe they're less monitored, like physiology wise, but they're still being monitored with their state of psychology, in order to make sure that they are getting that connection in order to maintain their strengths through modality treatment methods. And okay, so after the substance use, the physical addiction is resolved, that's not the end of the journey, as much as some people would like to tell you it is. And the people who would like to tell you it is are the ones with the money that doesn't want to pay for treatment. That's the beginning, right? What happens after that is the even after physical addiction is no longer an obstacle, you still have the mental addiction as well as the underlying problem that they were treating with their substance use. At this point, that underlying problem usually starts to bubble up because it's no longer being like covered up by substances. So whatever that trauma, whatever that event, if it's ADHD, if it's anxiety, if it's, this is the time where that stuff starts to get figured out. You know what I mean? Because at this point, you don't have that cover anymore. So this is the point whenever we start to really dive in and figure out where's your pain. That's what you ask your client. You ask them, where's your pain? When they have a substance use problem. You never ask them, why do you use drugs? You don't do that. You don't, because drugs feel good. If they didn't feel good, people wouldn't use them. Obviously, they're using them to feel good for some reason. But what you do is you ask them, where is your pain? Because most times they're using it to cover up pain of some sort or dysregulation of some sort. Or maybe the substance allows them to act in a state where people, like they were the life of the party or things of that nature, right? So where's your pain? Is it because you have anxiety about not fitting in if you're not on the substance? Is it because you feel incredibly depressed due to a past event? Is it that, insert whatever it could be here? Those were just a couple examples. And once you start asking them these questions of like, hey, where's your pain? Like let's talk about it. I want to help you help yourself. And I want to do that by addressing where the challenge lies. And not everyone is going to you have to meet the client where they're at. So not every client is going to be at the same level. Obviously, everyone's different. But what I would say is just sit there and listen. They'll tell you. If you ask, they will tell you where their pain is. Is it physical? Is it emotional? It's a great place to start. Is the pain due to a past event, or is it about future anxiety? There we go. There's another one. Let's explore more. Like, these are navigational pathways that will help the client navigate to where the pain is. Once you get to figure out where the pain is, then there are different treatment modalities that can be utilized to help the client process whatever the pain is. If it's a physical pain, like let's say they have metal plates in their arm and they started using substances because they could no longer get any from a physician, well, at that point, you try to get them in with a medical person and try to get them on, maybe tramadol, something that does not have an addiction as one of its side effects, right? Something that's not severely addictive as a side effect of that nature. You can help navigate that path. Or if it's an emotional one, you can do a therapeutic modality treatment plan, right? Like one of my favorites, and I utilize this a lot. This is my literal favorite is logos therapy, existential therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, less so. I'm more of a dialectical behavioral therapy guy. And the thing is like those are treatment modalities, but therapeutic styles are things like Rogerian, Castilian, things of that nature. Most people are probably familiar with the Rogerian style of therapeutic treatment modality, or not a modality, but styles, because Rogerian is the most passive to where you're really just listening most of the time and you're asking questions of the client in order to open-ended questions that are specifically designed to help them navigate themselves. That is the most common therapeutic style. I understand the importance of that style, and will I utilize that with some clients? Yes. But then I also like the idea of some confrontation of incongruencies within thought processes. Like if you have an incongruency within your thought process, I want to acknowledge it as soon as I see it, in order to try to help you become congruent with your goals and morals, right? And so, like, my style is a little more confrontational in that aspect. I'm not going to be the one that's being confrontational. I'm just going to point out when you're becoming confrontational with yourself by having differing opinions about the exact same thing, because I want you to recognize the incongruency so that you're challenging yourself to figure out which one is actually right for you. But that's therapy styles, which can be a video within itself, and it will be. But so that's why they say that not every therapist is for every client, because styles matter just as much as treatment modalities. They absolutely do. Some people do not want a therapist that's going to call out incongruencies and thoughts. Some of them do want that. Some of them want the therapist that is only going to ask questions to help the client figure out an answer. But so no matter what, if the first therapist you interact with, if you are someone who has substance use, if you don't click with them, if you don't vibe with them, that is totally okay. That doesn't mean that therapy isn't going to work for you. It just means that that therapeutic style or modality is just not right for you. So I wouldn't give up on therapy immediately, especially at this point, because this is a very vital point, right? You've made it to the point of getting past the physical addiction. You've gotten to the point to where you're really trying to get to the root of where your pain is. And at this point, it is vitally important to maintain a connection with community and a therapist of some sort. And it's okay if you have to go through 500 therapists to find the one that vibes with you to the point that you're like, yeah, this is my therapist. So be it. That's totally acceptable. Don't ever feel bad about changing up a therapist, and don't feel guilty either about leaving a therapist for another one. Don't, because at the end of the day, therapists want you to find the proper therapist for you, right? The ultimate goal is to help people who are struggling achieve success for themselves. That's the ultimate goal. Doesn't you know what I mean? I'm gonna take a break here and I'm going to read the comments, and then we're gonna go from therapeutic styles to modality treatment methods. And some of this is a little bit philosophical in nature, and that are commonly used, and some tools that can be utilized within this part in order to maximize success. And I'm going to ask you questions to ask yourself as well. So let's take a moment and get to the chat and see if I have any more questions. I appreciate everyone who is here and involved in the community and conversation. And I'm happy. I feel happy to be able to do this 1 hour a day. It is something that I'm grateful for.
Speech on. Chat options. But Casket King 00. Yo-yo. Button.
All right, Casket's still the last comment. Okay.
Marge Maple. Yes. Button. Casket. Chat options. Button.
All right.
Speech off.
Okay, so now we're going to proceed forward to treatment modalities. Logos therapy is my primary go-to for anything. The Man's Search for Meaning is such an amazing read. And I've stated this a few other times, but if you know why it's important, you'll find your how. So how do you implement that within a substance use challenge? Because why is it important for you to quit using your substance? Let's say you have dysregulation in certain parts of your life, right? You have to care about something else more than you care about the use of the drug in order to have the use of the drug no longer be your primary motivation. So you have to help the client navigate through different parts of their goals, maybe their morals, maybe a event, something that they love more than they love the use of their substance. And if you can find out what that is, then it becomes really easy to help them find their why. For example, maybe I'm just going to throw out this has no connection to anybody. But let's say you have someone that you're seeing who has an alcohol addiction, right? And their father had one, and their great-grandfather had one, and great-great-grandfather had one. And he is seeking treatment to relieve himself from his alcohol substance challenges, right? So maybe he says something like, I saw my grandfather, with my grandmother, and my grandmother was always depressed when he would drink. And my grandma, begged me to not drink like my grandpa did and like my dad does when I was a kid. And I told her I wouldn't. And she was, always there for me while my dad and my grandfather was off drinking. And she raised me. And, like if it wasn't for her, I would never have gotten to this point in life. And, I feel as though it's important for me to not drink anymore because I want to break the cycle for my grandma. Great, that is a wonderful reason. There's no such thing as a bad reason, by the way. Every reason is personal to the individual. So this is just a hypothetical scenario. So you're like, okay, great. So why is it important to quit drinking? Because I want to quit the cycle for my grandma. So then what you would do is you would help translate that into a physical object so that they have the reasoning as to why with them all the time. And this is used a lot in the substance use world for treatment is, so maybe their thing is a picture of their grandma and they carry it with them wherever they go, in their backpack, in their wallet, or they have it posted in their car because they're used to using in their car. Wherever it is, they have a picture of, in this scenario, they'd have a picture of their grandma. And any time that the desire to use would come up, then they would hold on to that object. They would have a physical reason in as to why. They'd hold on to that picture of their grandma and just look at her face and really just know that this is why. Because that feeling of wanting to use once you're past the physical addiction part does not last. If you can just hold off for 20 minutes from whenever you feel that urge and you're just like, God, I just want it so bad. I can't stand it. My skin's crawling. I just want to pull my hair out. If you can just find a way to distract yourself for 20 minutes, the chances of you relapsing really decreases. And so having a physical manifestation as to the reason why will lead to how they're going to be able to do it. And so logos therapy is vitally important. And it also goes along with existential therapy, right? And one thing I learned in my therapeutic practice, I wrote a paper doing a compare and contrast between logos therapy and existential because they both rely on a philosophical underlining, but their reasoning for their their utilization is different. And so, for example, existential therapy is about, you know, a good example of that would be something like, let's say, I'm going to give another example of someone who has a substance use, and I'm going to show you how you would utilize existential in comparison to logos, right? So let's start with a brand new person. So let's say we've got this guy named, you know what, we had a guy last time. We'll say we have a girl named Jessie. And Jessie is a 34-year-old Hispanic female. And she's a second generation American. And she's really close to her family. And no one in her family has a substance use problem. But while she was away at college, she wanted to enter a sorority back in her 19s and 20s. And in order to do so, they had to go through a hazing process, which resulted in drug use. And so every time that their sorority would get together, they would oftentimes use substances and host parties where cocaine and methamphetamine would be oftentimes distributed. Well, after university, she continued to use these substances through her 20s and into her 30s to the where she is now. Her family is incredibly religious, including herself, Jessie, and they oftentimes go to, we'll say they're Catholic, so they go to Catholic Bible stuff. Okay, you can tell I'm not a Catholic. But so let's say what I like about existential therapy, that's going to be our quote unquote case study for this, right? And we're going to go ahead and say that Jessie is here willingly, that Jessie wants to overcome her substance use. So she is here to receive treatment willingly. So what I would do with Jessie is I would say, all right, so Jessie, you're second generation American. Tell me about your culture. Tell me about your life, and we would go through. Let's say that Jessie says that, her religion is highly important to her and her connection with God and a greater being, a greater force, right? So I'd say, okay, great. So with existential therapy, what I would do is I would help her utilize her personal beliefs in a higher power through the concept of death. Like existential, like the idea, like this is the life that like, for example, she's Catholic. So I'd say, so, you believe in God. So this is the life that God gave you, right? Under your personal beliefs, you state that this is the life that God gave you, and you are looking to quit using substances because you want to maximize the good you can do in the world due to the life that you were given by insert higher being or insert thing here, because it becomes personalized to the individual, right? Because you're maximizing the idea that this life is the only one that we have. Therefore, by utilizing the individual personal experience, and this is existential therapy is the best across the world. I have found so many research studies that show that it's the best across the world, because most therapeutic styles is the all of the like scientific experiments and all of those things to see how the treatment modalities work is done on white men and white women. Well, existential therapy has been proven to be incredibly beneficial across multiple races, across multiple ethnic backgrounds, across multiple, like if you're working with clients who are from around the world, this therapeutic style has a way better chance of being showing positive results than a lot of other styles, because it's literally, and every person has a personal experience, because you're helping them come to that their personal conclusion. based off of their religious beliefs, based off of their personal beliefs, based off of all of these things. So their reasoning as to why is personalized not to a individual, but to the idea of, like with logos, the reasoning as to why can be anything. But with existential, the reasoning as to why is due to a greater power or a greater understanding or to or to something bigger than yourself, right? So that's the main differences between existential and logos. They're very similar in a lot of ways. They're both under the same umbrella of modalities, but even though they're under the same umbrella of modality treatments, they are different in their core fundamental like directions. And so I would help her if religion is vitally important to her, then that's a treatment modality method I would use in order to maximize success while also encouraging more connection within the community, right? I'm going to take another minute here and I'm going to see if there's any new comments. And then we'll continue from there and we'll continue onward.
Speech on. Created tools. Chat options. TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letter small capital THRYL key. UNLY Latin letter small capital URBs Latin letter small capital TSL. TIL1 creates these scenarios, too, with a fictitious person, their name, age, beliefs, habits, etc. I'm the only one here, by the way. Button.
All right.
Speech off.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. But yeah, all of these scenarios none of these are real scenarios, by the way. So if they remind you of anybody, just know that I've completely made them up off the top of my head. But after you do treatment modalities and you start going through treatment methods, then the main goal is to continue community connection going forward. Community connection, and doing maintenance. You want to continue doing maintenance check-ins to see how they're doing. And also, you need to remove the stigma around relapse. Relapsing is a natural process. It's a natural part of the process when it comes to substance uses, right? People shouldn't feel ashamed by relapsing. There's a band that I love, by the way, and anytime I talk to someone who's going through substance use and they want to quit using substances, I tell them about the band 6 a.m. and the album is called Heroin Diaries. The whole album is telling this amazing, beautiful story about a person who's addicted to heroin. And it's just magnificent because it's about them trying to get clean. And it's very emotional. It's just beautiful. Honestly, it's a beautiful piece of art. But I would oftentimes, anytime anyone says that to me, I always point them to that album. But if someone is going through a substance use addiction and they are receiving treatment and they have relapsed, that doesn't mean that they've lost. Doesn't mean they should give up. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm back to zero. No. That just means, all right, now we know that tomorrow's a new day and we're going to get back up and we're going to try again. Don't be discouraged because that is a natural part of the process of quitting substance uses. It's as you're going through different modalities and different treatment styles, maybe you feel the urge to use because your underlying pain is still not addressed yet. So maybe some days are going to be harder than others. But as long as proper tools are being utilized, hopefully we can mitigate most relapses or a percentage of them and help proceeding forward with the recovery process. So that is kind of how it looks whenever we're talking about the recovery process within the treatment situation. Now, that's so. I don't really have anything else to state on the topic. I've kind of walked through it. If you have any questions at this point, or if you have anything you would want to say when it comes to substances or uses of substances or things of that nature, now's the time. Let me see how long I've been live as well.
Speech on. 1 watching now. 3 live. Live 54 minutes 35 seconds.
Oh, not even an hour. All right. Give me a moment. I'm going to have to set you down for like a minute or two, and then I shall return. And I'm just going to keep going. Why not? I actually have a couple more things I'd like to say on the topic, but I have to be right back. Sorry, buddy. I do apologize for being gone like I was. So, I kind of want to do a brief
YouTube
recount.
now. YouTube Red Circle.
Oh,
Watch Live Now.
wow.
Thought TV. Free food review. Braised shepherd's pie. Attachment. 1 watching now. 3 likes.
I'm sorry about that. Let's see here.
Save highlight button. 1 watch. Live. Finish button. Finish button. Message retracted button.
Oh, there was a message retracted.
TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letters message TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letter small capital T TTRA Latin Casket King 00 Marge Maple yes button Casket TTR message TTR chat option creator tools chat TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letter small capital THRYL key UNLY Latin letter small capital URBs Latin letter small capital TSL. Typing this again. Serenity here with the messed up username. I'm actually working on an addiction video right at this moment. It's a subliminal delta wave sleep video for smoking and vaping cessation. Button.
Interesting. Sounds like a cool video, Serenity. Yeah, sounds really interesting. But I want to kind of recap some of the topics we discussed, and then I want to move into what you can do as a person to support someone who may have a substance use challenge. And so that's going to be the next thing that we cover after we kind of do a recap. So we opened by talking about why forced treatment methods based off of moral laws do not work within the treatment realm when it comes to substance uses. The individual has to want to receive treatment in order to be encouraged to maximize the success of treatment. We talked about the 5 stages of life that can be disrupted, and those are oftentimes signs used to see whether or not a substance use has gone to the realm of being disruptive. If 1 stage is disruptive, maybe that's a coincidence, but if 2 or more are disrupted, then now you have a pattern. We've talked about how you can encourage someone to seek treatment and want to seek treatment. And that was based off of building community connections. And I talked about a scientific report that was done on rats, and then how it was implemented in another country. I forget which one it was. It may have been Sweden. It was in a country over there somewhere. That's all I can remember. I haven't seen that video in probably 3 years. But it has been shown to have higher success rates of getting people involved in a community. Getting people involved in a community without stigma being attached has a huge impact on people wanting to receive treatment, because now they're not encouraged to do it for themselves, but they're encouraged to do it to further their connections with other people. And then once the person has the drive to want to receive treatment, we talked about the different therapeutic styles. Then we talked about the different treatment styles that I personally would utilize within that landscape. And now we're going to talk about what does it look like for an individual who is trying to make connections, and how you can do so in a way to maximize community connection for individuals who have substance use problems or challenges, to, in order to, relate better with someone like that, to build that community connection. So what I would do is, if you have someone in your life who has a substance use problem and are trying to build, hold on a second, I can hear Carrie's phone. Let me go shut the bedroom door. I don't want to get copyrighted. YouTube Live has gotten really bad at doing copywritings when they hear copyrighted material. Sorry about that. Yeah, YouTube copyright is terrible. Literally, I was copyrighted by playing my guitar. I played, I literally was on my guitar and I played Dust in the Wind and got copyrighted. And that was enough to get me copyrighted. So I get paranoid now. I don't want, because then my videos get removed. But, all right, so what you can do as an individual, if you have someone in your life who is suffering from a substance use problem, is to be cautious yet understanding. The worst thing you can do is remove them from your life for the individual. Having empathy and trying to understand what it's like for an individual to be experiencing pain at such a level that they feel the drive to use substances like this is, that pain is coming from somewhere. And so having empathy for individuals like that, while also promoting, connection, maybe while also taking safe boundaries for yourself, right? You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you may be encouraged to use substances, right? And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you can be taken advantage of. You don't want to assume the worst out of anybody. But you definitely want to protect yourself while also having empathy and understanding and encouraging those individuals to do stuff with you. And I would say that would be a wonderful route to take. It's way better than the route that most people take now in society in North America. And try to help them build community.
YouTube, now, red circle, Matt Walsh, Premiere, page 1 of 3, group, page 1 of 3, speech off.
Sorry, but helping them build community and helping them build like strong connections is one of the best motivators. And I'm not saying it would be easy to do by any means, but I'm saying that that's one of the best things you can do. I'll take another break and go through comments, and if anyone wants to share anything or give their opinion on things, by all means.
Speech on. Casket King 00, page 3 of 3. TTRA Latin letter small chat options. TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letter small capital THRY old key UNLY Latin letter small capital URBs Latin letter small capital TSL. Have you heard about Rat Park? Button. YouTube. Now. Rich Cooper clips. Evil stepmoms in the conflict. Chat options. Button.
Rat Park.
Speech off.
Yeah, see, that's what I was referring to earlier. Yeah. two of my favorite rat experiments is Rat Park and Rat Utopia. It's mind-bending, the results from that. Absolutely mind-bending, the results from that. Because who knew that, I mean, the results are just amazing. But yeah, I'm curious to see about that, the project that you're working on there. And once it's done, you got to let me know what's going on with it. And, I'll check it out for sure. But other commonly used modalities that is dialectical behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy is the poster child for therapists, right? It's the one that's received the most rigorous, what's the word I'm looking for? Standing. It's the one that's got the most research done on it. And the reason for that is because it is a very structured and a very rigid therapeutic style. And so it's easily more measurable than some other aspects because you have qualitative and quantitative data points. And cognitive behavioral therapy really utilizes the quantitative aspect. And quantitative can't really be disputed or argued as easily as qualitative research. And so it's backed by a lot of data that shows that it can be implemented in a lot of different therapeutic situations to treat a lot of different disorders. So a lot of times, a lot of therapists, I'd say most therapists have training in cognitive behavioral therapy, but I personally believe dialectical behavioral therapy is superior. A lot of people would go in the community for that, but to each their own. Just dialectical makes more sense to me.
Speech on. Creator tools. Chat options. Button. TTRA Latin letter small capital P Latin letter small capital THRY odd key. UNLY Latin letter small capital URBs Latin letter small capital TSL. It will be my third subliminal video. Button.
Oh, nice. Oh, your third one. I really liked the space one that you created, by the way. That one was awesome, going on that space journey. That was the best thing ever. Very enjoyable. So much so. But all right, well, I'm probably going to go live for an hour a day, 7 days a week. Today I was able to go a little earlier. So I'm probably going to go ahead and call it here and then jump off. So I appreciate you being here. And tomorrow's topic, I have a couple of things on my list. I haven't picked one specifically out for tomorrow, but trust me, I've on my note app on my iPad, as of this morning, I have 107. So I can cover at least 3 months of topics before I start to run out of ideas. And each one of these topics are definitely something I could speak on for a minimum of an hour. So, yeah, and I guess we'll see how that goes going forward. I am going to respond to Trump's
YouTube music now. New release speech off.
I don't know. I'll talk about that later. But I'm going to get off here. I will talk to everyone later. Hope
Speech
you all
on.
have a great
Finish
day.
button. Are you sure you want to stop? Cancel. End button.